Hey guys, it's Andy from D6 Evolution. I think it's about time we talk about the Alpha Legion. Now this review's a little bit overdue, so I'll get straight to it. So I played quite a lot with Alpha Legion in 8th edition, and I absolutely love them. So just to quickly go over the basics, their key sort of Legion trait is -1 to hit if you're more than 12 inches away, and that's most codexes have some form of this, and it is really powerful. The other thing they've got access to, which is incredibly powerful, is they've got a stratagem called Forward Operatives, which allows you to set up a unit after the game begins, but before the first turn, and it allows you to set them up more than 9 inches away from enemy models. Now guys, this is amazing. This is essentially Deep Strike. But it's better than Deep Strike because you can move in your first turn. So if you set up 9 inches away, these guys move 6 inches, and now they're only 3 inches away, so they need a 3-inch charge. The downside is, if you don't get first turn, they can get shot. But you know whether or not you're going to get first turn before you deploy these, and it happens after you seize the initiative. So you know whether you're going to deploy these guys really aggressively or whether you're going to deploy them slightly more conservatively. Now, as I'm recording this after the sort of March FAQ has dropped, where the beta rules say that things can't deep strike in turn 1, it specifically says these guys can still use their forward operative movement to still go 9 inches away from the enemy. So why is that so important? It is mainly important because people are not going to be screening so much anymore for Deep Strike. If things aren't coming down turn 1, people aren't going to be bringing scouts, they're not going to be bringing nurglings, they're not going to be bringing all those key units, which mean that these guys are really going to be starting up right next to the enemy instead of being screened and starting back near their own deployment zone. So I think actually with this FAQ change, these guys are going to be even more powerful because people are not going to be prepared for them. So what units are good with Alpha Legion? So I'd say my top 3 picks are, first of all, Khorne Berserkers. These guys are the absolute best and probably one of the best ways to run them. So being -1 to hit is absolutely amazing. So even if you don't get first turn, you deploy them slightly more conservatively, you deploy them in a building, a little bit further backfield, not so far back that they can't be useful in their own turn, and chances are they're gonna survive the first turn, or your opponent's gonna have to put so much shooting into killing them that other units are gonna be okay. So I like to run them in a big unit of up to 20. I run them with chain axes and chain swords, so they get that extra attack, and I run an Exalted Champion near them to get the rerolls to wound. 1 or 2 squads is great. The other thing to think about when you're running these guys is, if the opponent does have Deep Strikers, run Nurglings as well in your army, and that way, if you've got a detachment of demons, you can actually stop your opponent from zoning out your place where you're going to put these. So if you put your Nurglings 9 inches away from your enemy, they can't place anything around that. So when your first turn starts, then you can place down your Khorne Berserkers. I think Alpha Legion is the best way to run these guys. They're almost guaranteed, if you get first turn, they're going to get a turn 1 charge. It's only going to be a 3-inch charge. Other units to talk about with Alpha Legion would be Chaos Cultists. Again guys, big unit. I run them in a unit of 40, and the idea behind this unit is to get maximum board control from the start of the game. I spread them out all over the mid-table, so I'm on all of the objectives, and I then control the board so people can't bring down their own Deep Strikers, and I can clear a space for my own units to Deep Strike in later in the game. The other way to run the Cultists is to be a little bit more aggressive. Some people use them with the auto guns. I need to deploy them right in your opponent's face. You deploy them, within 12 inches. And the aim here is to do a sort of what they call a cultist bomb, and essentially rapid fire your cultists, make them mark of Slanesh so that they can fire twice, once at the end of the shooting phase, and you give them Veterans of the Long War stratagem as well. So they're shooting twice, they're doing +1 to wound, and if you're really crafty, you can also give them, you can also cast Prescience on them to give them +1 to hit. So they can be absolutely devastating. They can have 160 shots in one turn from a unit of 40 cultists. And if people are killing them, you can use the Tide of the Traders to bring them back later. And they've got to do it all over again. It's pretty CP heavy, but actually, if you're facing a army with a lot of sort of chaff, then it's absolutely fantastic for killing them. Right, the other unit to talk about probably, and we've not talked about in the reviews yet, is the Terminator bomb. So when we say Terminator bomb, it's Chaos Terminators armed with plasma. And the idea here is you drop a unit of 5 or 10 down, you drop them with a Chaos Sorcerer. Now the -1 to hit, which is absolutely fantastic, and it makes those Terminators a little bit more resilient. And they're absolutely devastating. So you need to cast Prescience on them with a Sorcerer, but they can have a jump pack so they can deep strike down next to them. And you can also cast Warp Time on them as well. The idea behind casting Prescience is you add +1 to the hit rolls for the plasma, so you can overcharge them without the risk of getting hot. So you overcharge them and you make sure the Terminator's a mark of Slanesh, so you can fire them twice. So a unit of even 5 of them can be absolutely devastating. It's one of the strongest units in the game. And like I said before, guys, people are not going to be zoning out deep strikes as much, so these guys are probably going to get in more often than not. So what psychic powers work well with Alpha Legion is probably the next thing to talk about. I'd say 2 main ones are Prescience, particularly on the Chaos Terminators with the Terminator bomb, but also works well on, also works fantastic if you use a Cultist bomb. +1 to hit on those Cultists makes them absolutely lethal. Equally well, using them on the big squad of Berserkers, you give them +1 to hit, so now they're Death from the False Emperor. If you're targeting Imperium, will go off on a 5 and a 6, so those Berserkers are going to be getting crazy amounts of hits. The other amazing one to use is Warp Time. Now, there's probably never a circumstance where Warp Time is not worth taking, but particularly on Berserkers, you can really get past those deployment screens by moving up your 6 in the movement phase, and then Warp Time them past the screen so they can get in range of more things. It's great on the Terminators as well because they can get into range, they can use their power fists. Again, Terminators are great in combat, but they're slow, so using that Warp Time is fantastic for them. Other things for Alpha Legion are their Warlord traits actually surprisingly good. And it essentially allows you to keep generating new Warlords as long as you've got character left. You've got characters, so it just means that your opponent can never get Slay the Warlord. So guys, that's a quick rundown of Alpha Legion. So really powerful combos. Absolute favourite is the Berserkers, big squad of Berserkers, right up in your opponent's deployment zone. So I think they're going to be great now this FAQ's dropped and people aren't going to be deep strike screening as much. Cultists, I've got a big squad in the middle of the board, maximum board control, and if you want to be really aggressive and they've got lots of chaff to clear, then you can use them as a proper cultist bomb and just sink a few command points into it and absolutely shred your opponent's chaff. And the other thing to think about, guys, is if you need anti-tank, that Terminator bomb is absolutely lethal if you can get it in position. In terms of how do I run my psychic powers, I use a Sorcerer with a jump pack. He deep strikes in, he's absolutely brilliant. That's going to be a little bit more problematic now that that FAQ's dropped. But actually, a Sorcerer with a jump pack's actually pretty nippy at the best of times anyway, so it shouldn't be a problem even if you'd start them in your own deployment zone. So guys, that's a quick rundown of Alpha Legion. Sorry it's taken a while. I'll catch up with Lewis when I see him next, and we'll probably go over the Forge World, Alpha Legion, because he's got some crazy ideas for a summoning list there. Right, let me know what you think in the comments below, and stay tuned, and we'll hopefully do some more Codex reviews soon.